I used to like to say, nobody works for me, everybody works with me, because, it's not just about me. It's about the whole team. It's the whole group. You have to help each other, check each other out, and make sure we had a good product going out the door.
Welcome to the Seven Figure Flipping Podcast, where we take you behind the scenes of wholesaling and house flipping businesses. The systems and automation that we discuss will help you build a real business instead of another job for yourself. From beginners to those doing hundreds of thousands a year, we go deep into the details and strategies that are working today. And now your host, Bill Allen.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Seven Figure Flipping Podcast. This is Bill Allen, and today I have someone very special to me that I want to bring on and introduce you guys on the podcast. And if you went to Flip Hacking Live, you saw this person. We've been doing this series on the podcast about leadership and kind of core values and our journey and everything like that. And last week I brought you Jocko Willink. We did an interview about leadership. Then we talked to my EOS coach, Dan Coleman. He came on and he talked about the EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, traction, and all the things that we're doing in that side of our business in Blackjack Real Estate and how that's helped us kind of move the needle. And then I showed Nate in my presentation on the last podcast from Flip Hacking Live. And we talked a little bit about the things that we did inside of our business to grow our business, about the people, finding and leading the right people. And so what I wanted to do today is, if you're at Flip Hacking Live, if you were there and you saw my opening presentation, then you heard this person's story. You heard my story. You heard me tell you guys all about what's going on in like my journey into this real estate business, into the house flipping business, through the military when I was a kid, and kind of the person that molded my life and who I am and kind of my core values. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to bring him on to talk a little bit about that, about those core values, and maybe learn a little bit, go even a little bit further and figure out where his came from and a little bit more of the story, kind of his side. I kind of was on stage telling my side of his story, which maybe I did it justice, maybe I didn't, I'm not sure. We'll find out today. So I invited my dad. This is my dad on the podcast, Bill Allen. And Bill Allen, he's not really Bill Allen Sr., but my dad, the Bill Allen. I'm like the next one down. So I want to, first of all, Dad, welcome to the podcast. I'm going to try to call you, maybe I'll just call you Dad. I'm not sure, but welcome to the podcast. I know I just kind of reached out to you cold and said, hey, you know that I run this podcast and I do all this stuff for this Seven Figure Flipping group. And you were at Flip Hacking Live for the first time seeing me speak. I told your story and you talked to a lot of different people there. So you kind of came into this world for the first time. And I don't know what you think about all this, but I wanted to have you on and I think it'll be cool. I think we can kind of talk and tell your story a little bit and maybe some leadership lessons that you learned in the military and throughout your life that you've passed on to me. So even better than me talking on the podcast to them about leadership. So welcome, first of all. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. A little nervous and stuff, but no problem. Happy to let you in on how I got through my journey, and so still on it actually. So
awesome. So first of all, don't be nervous. It's just me and you talking, obviously, like we talked about. So, so let's start off kind of, if people weren't at Flip Hacking Live and they don't even know who you are, they kind of know, they've been following the podcast, they kind of know my story a little bit, but why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about your background, maybe from like, kind of growing up a little bit and then the military and then your business and kind of what your background is.
Okay. Well, I come from a large family. I'm the oldest of 6 children. My mother's parents came from Croatia. So she's a full Croatian, and my dad, he was an engineer too, electrical engineer. He grew up in South Carolina and he went in World War II. So he was in the Army as a lieutenant and the Supply Corps. Then after the war, he finished up his degree, and then he got a job up in Pennsylvania at Westinghouse, Sharon, Pennsylvania. And that's where he met my mom, and they got married, and that's where they started their journey. But anyway, they had me first, and then I had my 5 brothers and sisters. But so I guess growing up, my father was an engineer, so I figured everybody must be engineers. And then maybe because he was in the military, maybe that's why I decided to get into the military later on too. But as I was growing up, like I was in the Boy Scouts and almost all my leaders had served in World War II, so it was a different time back then. Although I like to think that I also grew up in a very interesting time, because I went to the high school in the 1960s, and that's during the Vietnam War. And, there was a lot of backlash, and people didn't like that war. And, that was a time of the hippies and this and that. But in spite of that, I went on to college, and I ended up in the ROTC program after a few years at Georgia Tech. I went to Georgia Tech from high school, and I became an engineer, mostly, I guess, because I was good at math and science. I liked doing it. And my dad was my example, I guess. And so I pursued that path. But I really did like the idea of the Navy, and I did like the idea of nuclear submarines. So that's what I signed up for. And so I finished my degree at Tech, and then I went into the active duty as an ensign in the Navy. Went to nuclear power school in Bainbridge, Maryland, close to where I grew up in Baltimore. Then we went up to New York, up to prototype for 6 months training, learning how to operate a regular reactor, and then sub school, and then out to San Diego to meet my first ship, the USS Haddo, fast attack sub out of San Diego. So I was there on that ship for about 6 years, and I made a couple of Westpacks. I got married. You were born in 1980 while we were there, and decided I wanted to have some kind of a family life, because back then these ships were fighting the Cold War with the Soviet Union, and so there was an awful lot of sea time involved if you were in the Navy, especially in the submarine service. So I decided to leave active duty, and I went into the reserves at that point. But anyway, after that, we went to Baltimore, back to Baltimore. I worked for Baltimore Gas and Electric for a little while at Calvert Cliffs Nuclear Plant. Then I got my professional engineer's license, actually, while I was in the Navy. And then I decided to be a consulting engineer working in construction. So we made the blueprints for buildings and things. So I worked for a while in Baltimore. Same time I was going to college again, master's degree at Johns Hopkins. Got my applied physics degree there. And the company out in California picked me up to work on the space station power system, Rocketdyne, out in Canoga Park. So we moved back out to California because we liked Southern California from our time in the Navy. And you got to go to elementary school there in Thousand Oaks we lived. So during that time, I was working on the space station, and it's a very interesting time. Learned a lot. I was also in the Naval Reserve at that time, and I would do my active duties back in D.C. At Naval Sea Systems Command. And that allowed the whole family to go back to Baltimore and see the grandparents and all that. So I got to go to work, but everybody else got a vacation.
So for the 2 weeks that you did your Navy active duty time in the reserves, you would actually take us back there to DC?
I would take you back to Baltimore. We'd stay at your grandmother's house in Towson. I'd drive all the way down to DC for work every day, and then you would visit with all your friends and all that stuff. So.
Oh, cool! I didn't even remember that. So okay, so you did that, and then we moved to Maryland, and that's when you started your business, right?
That's when I. Actually, we moved back to Maryland. I was working on the Hubble Space Telescope at first, and then I decided I wanted to get into business for myself. So I went back into the consulting engineering field, and that's pretty much a professional services type service where you work with the developers, architects, people that build buildings. And what I did was I designed all the electrical systems that go into a building, the power systems, the lighting, the fire alarm, the sound systems, anything like that. And we made the blueprints, and that was part of the set that would always go out for bid. Contractors would bid on it, and then the buildings would get constructed. The winning contractor would use those drawings to construct the building. So I started that. I was working for a couple other companies first, but then decided that I was going to go on my own. So I did that by myself. I found a good partner, Zach Sharif, back in 1992, I guess. I was teaching some PE courses. I was instructor. People were getting ready to take the test, and they would take these refresher courses. And as a side job, I needed some more money. I was teaching how to to get ready for the test. And Zach was one of my students, and he always needed a lot of extra attention, but he would come over to my house and we'd go over things. And he was a mechanical engineer, so I was electrical engineer. So that's the perfect combination for our business, mechanical, electrical. And so eventually we decided to get together and form a company called Allen and Sharif Corporation. We incorporated in 1993. And we grew the company. It still exists today. You can go to allensharif.com, check it out. It's still a very good design, build, construction corporation. Lots of good people. We have office in Columbia where we started. We also have a Pittsburgh office, Salisbury, Maryland office, and we also have an office out in Abu Dhabi where we do some project management for the government health authority out there. So that's where I've gone. The company got up to around 200 people or so. We're probably down right now to about 125 or so, maybe 150. I'm not sure. I'm sort of retired, so I'm out of the game a bit. I still own a lot of the company, my half, and I'm still on the hook for all of the loans and lines of credit and bonding and this and that. So.
Yep,
until somebody buys me out, I'm still.
I know how that goes. I got some kind of personal guarantees out there and things like that for the company that runs for me. So okay. So some people are probably listening to this going, what does this have anything to do with real estate? Well, it has everything to do with real estate, because what we're talking about on these podcasts and kind of what we do inside of our mastermind groups about building a business, I feel like real estate, the wholesaling and house flipping side of it, that is the kind of the means to what we do. That's the widget, that's the thing, that's the outlet and avenue that your business runs off of, right? So all of this stuff, like this is somebody who's run a company of 200 employees. And I didn't realize it was that big, actually. As we were kind of growing up, I didn't really get involved in the business. I didn't ask a lot of questions. There were times where in like middle school, I would be the secretary during summers and stuff to try to make some money when the secretary was out for a week, and I'd run drawings. I remember smelling that ammonia from the blueprints that I was running in those machines, just I don't know, just trying to earn.
Back in the day, we had those ammonia machines for making blueprints. Nowadays, it's all just black and white and Xerox machines, pretty much.
Yeah. So I was there trying to make some money, but I didn't understand the inner workings of it. I just knew my dad had this company, and I knew that you were working really hard. So I guess let's start with this. Let's start with kind of when you started the business with Zach. We have a lot of people that listen to this that are saying, should I partner up with somebody? Should I do it on my own? I get that question all the time. Like, Bill, you don't have a partner. Should I take on a partner or not? Like, why did you choose that route at that time? And did you start doing it by yourself and then realize that you would need somebody else for help? Or why did you have a partner? Because you guys were like 50-50. Basically.
Yeah, I started by myself, but being only in the electrical discipline, I would always need to partner up, because on all these construction projects, there's a lot of people involved. There's the architect, usually the lead. Then there was a structural guy. Then there's a mechanical guy, then an electrical guy. So usually the mechanical and electrical is one company. So I was always on the lookout for a mechanical engineer, either to hire so that my company could offer both of the services, or to find a partner and we could be 50-50. So I found Zach, and actually he is probably the best partner I could have ever gotten. And it was just purely by luck, really, because we complemented each other. I was more of an organizer and get things done type of person, and Zach was much more of a go out and get the business guy, kind of guy. He's the one that wants to go out and meet people, play golf. But at the same time, he could get the work done too. So he knew what he was talking about, and he could sell the job. So I always told people, Zach would sell the job and Bill and the guys would get it done. And then we get it done right on time, and then they keep coming back. So we always were trying to look for repeat business. So once you can make a name for yourself and get a good reputation going, that's what it was really all about in getting started, because people are taking a chance on you in the beginning because you're not a known quantity, and you're up against other corp companies that provide these very same services, and they know them. But, everybody makes a mistake once in a while, so they get mad and they give other guys a chance, and sometimes they give us a chance.
Yep.
So the story about that is sometimes we would stumble a little bit. I said, don't worry, they'll try somebody else and they'll be back. So we had good success, and we still do have good success and a lot of loyal clients.
So with that, you said that you could have hired Zach. So why didn't you just hire him? You probably could have hired him at that time. So like, what about it was in your mind the partnership thing? Like, what pushed you there?
I think Zach I probably couldn't have hired him because he was the kind of a guy that is really more of a leadership kind of a guy. You'll know whether the person that you're working with is going to be a leader and take charge kind of a guy, or is he going to be a follower and a staff kind of a guy? There's a lot of you just know by their personalities. I think at least that's the way it worked out for me.
And you were okay splitting the company in half and not having to be in charge of everything. And so he must have brought something that you felt like you probably weren't as good at.
Well, he brought his mechanical expertise and his professional engineer's license, and I brought my electrical expertise and my electrical engineering license. And so we formed the company. I have to say that we did take advantage at one time of Zach's minority status because he is born in Pakistan. So for a time, he had like one share more than me of the stock, and we were a minority company that we could get some additional contracts for. And so we worked that out for many years, but you graduate out of that after about 8 years.
Yep. So yeah, I remember that helping you early on in your journey, being able to win some of those jobs and some of the bids and stuff like that. So I think a lot of people that are listening, they are in that situation where maybe they're a really good salesperson, but they're not really good with the detailed side of the marketing and the key performance indicators and tracking all the metrics and the books. I feel like the salespeople are really good at, like you said, like Zach was doing. He's out playing golf, socializing.
Well, he's making contact with the clients. It's not about the golf, really.
Oh yeah, no, I know exactly. Yeah, I'm not trying to say that Zach was playing golf all day, but we have these people who are really good at bringing in business, right? They're really good networkers.
You got to get that business in the door.
Yep.
But then once it's in the door, somebody's got to get it done, and it's got to get done right. So that's how
exactly. And it's the same thing in our business. I find that we have these real estate like these salespeople owners who are really good at getting the contracts, but then all they're doing is going out looking for the next business. They're not thinking about the back end with what do the books look like? Is there equity in the company? Are we making money? All they're doing is just churning through contracts and making sales, and all the paperwork is kind of left on the side. So what they would be really good matching up with somebody else. Now, if I had two people that were like that in a partnership together, it's probably not a great partnership. So
yeah, that if you get two of the same people, you need a yin and a yang is what you need. And Zach and I are a perfect yin and yang people because we really complement each other without a doubt. And like I say, I was lucky to find him, and he probably feels lucky to find me, to be honest with you. And we've remained good friends over time. Because a lot of times these relationships do go south when you join up with a partner. And I would always recommend too, if you do end up with a partner, make sure that you think of all the good stuff that's going to happen, but also think of the bad stuff that's going to happen and how you're going to dissolve it if something does go downhill. How do you get out of it? How do you separate and make it less painful, or so to say? Because I can tell you, me and Zach have had our differences, and I always tell the people, I look down the hole and I said, I don't want to go down there. So we find a way to work through these things and come to agreement, and we move on. So it's an important thing to do, is to find a good partner, or to have the right people working for you. If you're the guy that's in charge and you don't have a partner, I think you can not easily, but you can definitely make it by having the right people working with you. So you just find the right skill sets, find what you need, and find the metrics that you know how to, find. I think you had some of these things in your at the
Flip Packing Live.
Flip Packing Live, where, the hows, how to get the right people in there and stuff. So
right. We talked about the who, not the how. So Dan Sullivan talks about the who, not the how, like finding the people who already know how to do this stuff. And for you, that was Zach in some of those areas. And for Zach, it was you in those other areas. Exactly. And you guys combining forces. The thing a lot of times, I remember Mike Simmons told me, I said, Mike, why'd you partner up? Why did you bring in a partner? You were already doing it on your own. And he said, look, if 1 + 1 = 2, it's not a good fit. Like 1 + 1 has to equal like 5 or 10. Like together you have to be stronger than the separate parts. And if you can do that and bring those people in, then it's going to be a really good formation between the two of you, because you got to bring in that other side that maybe sees things a little bit differently. And I'm always a little bit jealous of people with partners, to be perfectly honest, because all the weight is on my shoulders as the sole entrepreneur in this business. It was just me. I was the one making the decisions. I was the one that I never actually had somebody who would play the other side of it. It was me making the decisions. I'd have to live with it. But personally, I know that that's where I want to be, the kind of person that I am and the way that I want to do things. And now bringing in the COO, now I have that person. And so me joining the mastermind group 4.5 years ago or so, that was the best thing for me, because I basically looked at all of these other owners of their company that now I almost had a bunch of partners. I had this board of directors, these people around me, these other CEOs that I could bounce ideas off of and say, hey, what do you guys think about this idea that I have? And they would give me their feedback almost like a partner would, without just giving me what I needed. I had a question. I'm trying to make this decision, or I'm struggling to make this decision. A lot of times those partners, you guys are bouncing ideas back and forth, and one has an idea, the other one kind of says, well, what about this? And you can kind of work together to come up with that stuff, where I never really had that myself. And now with my COO, it's fantastic because we have this visionary integrator relationship, the CEO-COO relationship, where we can bounce ideas off of each other. And
our business took a big rise too after we hired. We took the leap, and it was expensive for us to hire our CPA, our CFO actually, and she became actually our COO also. So she took over the financial side and got us with the banks and our loans all straightened out. And
that's all right.
We had once she came on board, it really made a difference, and the company took off because, again, it freed Zach up to go out and get more business. It freed me up to get the jobs done, get the people trained up, because, I had to hire engineers. We have to show them the way that we want to do things. You have to, there's certain procedures you want to follow. And then again, there's the things that are important, like writing the right proposal and the key performance indicators. You don't want to underbid things. So you want to get the right price out there. Because, everything we did was pretty much fixed price. So you put a number out and you got to live with that number until the end of the job. So you want to make
I wish our contractors actually did that. So yeah, they'll put a fixed bid price out there and go, we saw all these other things that went wrong. So we're actually going to have to change the price. So there's probably a lot of people
change orders. No change orders. Not allowed.
I'd like to find a contractor that has the integrity that you do in your business.
We always would stand by our jobs. Yeah.
Yeah. So I totally agree with that. I think what we're talking about right now, this series that we're doing, is about leadership. It's about team building. It's about all that's kind of core values and finding those right people. That's it, right? That's the number one thing in business. You have 4 employees or you have 200 employees. That's what it is. So you and Zach kind of came together, started building this company out, and then you brought in the CFO, who eventually became the COO. And just like you said, I think it's very important that we highlight this. Is it allowed you guys to do the things that you're really good at and go do the things that you should be doing, that you can focus on. Because that's exactly what happened for us. Nate came in, freed me up with a lot of things that I could do that I wasn't able to get to because I was putting out all the little fires that needed to be put out. And I wasn't able to manage all of these people. I had so many people reporting directly to me. And I remember when I called you, and I right when I was starting the business, I said, how many people can you manage yourself? Do you remember that phone call that we had?
Sure.
And you told me, you gave me an answer, you told me everything. So what do you think? Like, how many people, and I had this question in our high level, our 7-figure club mastermind group, the people who are making multiple $1 million in profit per year. This guy said, I am running around like a chicken with my head cut off. I cannot get anything done. I'm still at the office at 8:45 at night and everybody else is gone. He said, what's going on? Like, I don't know what I need. I feel like I'm just constantly going and going. We're doing more, but I have more work. So how many, and my question to him, just so you know, was how many direct reports do you have? That's it. That was my question. You need to give me that answer before I can give you, because I think I know what the answer is. And I was right. So how many people can you manage effectively, do you think? Like, what does that look like? What should somebody be thinking about that owns a business like this?
Well, I always had the impression in my business, in this consulting engineering business, the professional engineering business, that the ideal size was about 12. Okay. If you had 12 people under you, you would be in a good shape. You would know what everybody's doing and where you're at. So I always tried to put the departments about that size, 12 people. And sometimes when we started a new office, that would be the maximum size that we were looking for, because the head of the office at that size would know all the clients. He would know what all his people are doing and kind of the status of all his jobs. Because one of the things that we did when we were expanding is we had the home office took care of like all the taxes and the billing and the this and that, and the satellite offices were able to just concentrate on the business, get the business and get it done. And so the CFO type of operations and the HR stuff was all taken care of at the home office. And like I said, so my answer kind of going around is max is like 12. And this is even like in the service. When I was in the service, you have your department head. I was on a submarine. The department head had like, I don't know, 6 divisions, maybe. Yep. I don't know. And then in each division, there was like 10 guys, maybe, so, and that's kind of how it always broke up. I used to have an admiral. He used to, in the engineering duty officer thing, he always would go back to the hunter-gatherers. And he said the hunter-gatherer groups were like groups of 12 people that could go out and would be able to hunt effectively, and get the game or whatever and gather up the crops and things like that. So that's kind of where I found that you were successful. I find that people that have more than that, it ends up, you don't know what's going on. You get lost. Yep. How many things can you keep track of? One guy of a big office of 50 or 100 people, he can't keep track of that at all. He has to push it down to smaller groups, and then the head of the groups have to report to him so that he can handle it. So.
Yeah, I'll give you my answer because I think mine's going to be a little bit different. So when you and I were talking, I was like, okay, great. That sounds good. As I got into this business, what I found is we're constantly growing. We are a growth operation. And when you're a growth operation, that manager, that person, like the owner, the CEO, whoever it is, even the manager, you have all these extra tasks that you're constantly going out. Now, I think if we were stable and I was operating, this would be something that I could handle. So I think the answer for me in the real estate business is about 5 or 6. That's where I want to be. I want to be there because it's almost like a small, like I think we talked about it with Jocko, and Jocko was like, it's like what the SEAL teams are. We're very small, like 5 or 6 man teams that go out on this patrol in the ground warfare, the combat zone. So you can actually be like right next to that person because stuff always blows up all the time. And when if I had to manage 12 people to figure out where they all were when stuff was blowing up in front of me, because the real estate business, I feel like we're just constantly creating problems and we're working with unstable sellers. There's all this stuff that's going on. It's constant explosion. So the smaller the kind of rifle team that he talked about, or the smaller team that I have, like right now in this company in 7-figure flipping, I have about 9 direct reports and I am drowning. I have way too many. So right now we're building out the accountability chart to figure out how I can get somebody to manage 3 people. So those 3 people talk to that one person talks to me. And I only have about 4 or 5 direct reports because I think for me in this business, I feel like it's because we're always growing. We're in this huge growth cycle. We're doing 100% growth year over year. And we also don't have accountability. So we're trying to build that in too. And we have all of these things blowing up on a regular basis. So like the touch points, there's just so much communication that funnels back and forth where I think that's the problem. When you have 12 lines of communication and those people are all talking to each other and talking to you, it gets immensely complicated. It's exponential. And so for me, that's where I think that we should be in the real estate business. So it's cool to see different industries, very different kind of structure. But for me, I like that as we get bigger, if we got to like 200 people or 300 people, like you're talking about 500, then I agree. You're probably going to have like a broker that manages the 12 real estate agents. You're going to have a general contractor that manages 12 subcontractors or something like that. I think it's doable, especially when you're in one place. And like you said, you have the mother company managing all the other admin and stuff like that, because there's a lot of other people that are involved in that stuff. So, okay.
Well, even in my business with the 12, it was more like half of them were lower level people, maybe CAD people that were doing the drawings. So you really were only dealing with the 6 engineers. So that it would really match up with what you're saying.
Yeah. And the COs, like in the military, those department heads, you got like 6 departments. You might have, it's around there, 6 department heads. And then those department heads, they have a chief and maybe so they have like a senior chief, and they might have a first class. And then that LPO is in charge of like the 5 or 6 other guys. So even that department head is got a division officer. He's got like 3 or 4 division officers and chiefs, and they each have like 5 or 6 enlisted guys. So it really comes down, and when you look at it as it funnels down, there are different layers of accountability, like the leading, the management, and the accountability of all those people. In Traction, they call it LMA: lead, manage, and hold accountable. And that's the kind of structure that we try to put into place. And I modeled it after the military, just like you talked about. I modeled my entire company after the military.
Try to do that. Yeah.
So with like me as the CO, Nate as the XO, all my mid-level managers as kind of the department heads, and then all their people having division officers and kind of troops and soldiers. And it's just all I know. So that structure seems to work really well. And like when I interviewed Jocko, same thing. He's like, yeah, we kind of move down. We have smaller teams, smaller groups, because we can be in better contact with each other. We know what's going on 100%. We don't even really have to say anything. We could just look over there, see where they are, know that they're in the right position to be safe. So really cool stuff. And I think it marries well to business in what we do. And so, okay. So we talked about kind of my core values at Flip Hacking Live. So kind of ownership, not blaming anyone. And I used a lot of examples from my life that I saw in you. So for anybody who's listening, mine's extreme ownership, it's stewardship, it's hardworking, it's integrity, it's personal professional development. And I think, as I was writing down my 3 people, and thinking about who all those people were in my life that have molded me to who I am, you were the easy one. Like the first is so easy to write your name down, because every single one of those was exuded in you. And my other 2, one of my other ones was this commanding officer of mine in the military. I think you've met him, Greg Sheehan. So I actually sent him an email saying, hey, I want to have you on the podcast. So I hope that he comes on and we can talk about leadership and some things. And then Andy McFarland was the other one, who was very recent in my mind and everything that had been happening, my real estate mentor, who you met in person at Flip Hacking Live. Yeah. And so those 3 guys, but who have been kind of the people that have, who did you write down at the event? So I'm interested to hear that first.
Well, what I wrote down was when I was growing up, I was in the Scouts. So I wrote down just my Scout leaders, because, I always liked the Scouts, the Scout law, the trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. See, I still know them at 67 years old. I look at them, every week just to, remind myself. But those kind of things. I also, I played some sports, and I wrote down some of the coaches that I had, because they encouraged me to, I think it was more like, I just loved the organization. Like we played football and stuff in the plays, and everybody had a job, and, you go here, you go there. I still even remember some of the numbers, the 4-0 run around and had all the holes, and the different backs would do that. And I was the blocking back, so I had to go lead the way and hit guy. Anyway, so I had that, and then I put down my dad in that, and because he was he was very intelligent and very understanding, because when I was growing up, I did make, mistakes, but he also was he let me do things, believe it or not, when in 1969, he actually drove me and my friend up to the Appalachian Trail at Vermont-Massachusetts line and let us go. We walked for 600 miles in 6-7 weeks one summer, the summer of 1969, all the way up to Mount Katahdin. me and this other kid in high school, seniors. We're juniors. We're between our junior and senior year. And then we hitchhiked all the way back from Mount Katahdin in Maine back to Baltimore. I mean, what kind of parents would let you do that now?
Today, none. Not a single parent. Nobody would. Not today.
That's not done. But I mean, he had enough faith in me and enough confidence that I was going to do okay or do the right thing. So, definitely.
So let's talk about that for a second. So I think that's important relationship to business too. We have a lot of people that work for us, and you've got to be willing to let them make a mistake.
Oh yeah.
And be okay if they make that mistake, and give them the kind of scope and the rope to do that, even newer people. So a lot of times what I found as I was managing people and leading people from the beginning of this journey is I would have a tendency to look over their shoulder or try to micromanage them or something. But I really made it a point of mine to let them make those mistakes or give them enough scope to go out there and be confident in making those decisions. Otherwise, they're going to come to me every time they have a decision that they have to make.
Right. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
No, yeah, because I've had both types of commanding officers, one that let you lead and make mistakes, and the others that micromanage. And then the division officer turns into the chief, and the chief turns into the LPO, and on down the line. It's not good. And you can't really do all the work yourself. So you have to have faith in the people that work with you and let them go their own way. And I always like to tell people is there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. Just the way I do it is not necessarily the only right way to do things. So in our business, in the engineering business, I solve problems a certain way, and other guys solve another way that are equally correct, and we could argue the merits of each one, but you know what? In the long run, each is okay. And, I learned to let it go and not have to change it to my way. You don't do that because you're not taking advantage of that other brain that you hired, because you have that other intelligence that you want to use on the job and let them do it. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. I never really thought of it that way. You're paying money to have this person work for you, and you're making the decisions for them. No. Why are you doing that? You want to develop this leader. You want them to grow inside the organization. You want to let them flourish in there and grow and become, an extension of obviously their own person, but an extension of you effectively to be able to replace yourself in the organization for different ways.
The other thing I always told the engineers that work with me, I said, look, someday you're probably going to open up your own firm and you're going to be my competitor, but I'm still going to teach you the right way to do it. And you decide for yourself, you want to stick with me or you want to do it on your own. That's okay.
So that's what a lot of people fear in this business, right? They bring somebody in, you teach them exactly what you're doing, you show them behind the curtain, and then they go out and do it on their own. So,
well, then you have to have faith in yourself that you can do it just as well as anybody else. So, I don't know.
For me, it's better. Go ahead. For me, people came up to me at Flip Hacking Live. I put my team on stage. Chad was on there, Val, Heather, Ashley, Nate, all of them. And they just said, well, why don't you guys, they all came up to me afterwards and said, why don't you guys just go do this on your own? Nate said the number one question that people ask him is, why don't you just go do this yourself? And his answer was, and I don't want to answer for him, but it was just, look, we can get further together. Doing this, I know that I plugged into something that's already operating. Chad said it from stage, and we put his presentation here on the podcast, but he's plugging into a wheel that's already rolling down the hill at a very high speed. And he knows that we can go further and faster and bigger together than doing it on his own. And I've had people that want to go do something on their own after they've worked with me. And that's fine. I want to develop those.
I encourage it too. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm not going to say, hey, go start up shop right in my own area. I will crush you. I will be better. I will do more. We will become competition. And, but I'll tell you the side of things for me is just seeing those people start from a place of not wanting to be an entrepreneur and finding that inside of themselves. I felt like I had this, obviously, you had it, you passed it on to me. I didn't even know that I was an entrepreneur and wanted to build a business and do these things until I started doing it. Now it's so addictive that I can never go work for somebody else again. I mean, I don't know that I ever.
Yeah. Once you work for yourself, once you work independently, you still like to, you're always going to like it.
Yeah. And And I think we have to be, as leaders and owners of these businesses, we have to be secure enough to be okay bringing these top talent, these A players into our business, showing them what we're doing. And then if they do decide to leave, the thing is, I think we have to treat them well enough that they don't. Like, how do we figure out how to keep them? And then I'm not forcing them to stay. If they want to go, they're going to go. But, and I'm also confident enough that I can find somebody else to come into my operation and do really well in there.
You want to make, I always say, I want to make sure you guys have good, interesting work, and that you find it, and you have the right benefits and the right tools that you need, everything, so that you want to stay here and work with us to make a good company. Because I used to like to say, nobody works for me, everybody works with me, because, it's not just about me. It's about the whole team. It's the whole group, and, together, because one guy makes a mistake and doesn't get caught, the whole team suffers. You have to help each other, check each other out, and that's kind of a lot of the procedures that we also did for ourselves, is make sure that we did help each other and make sure we had a good product going out the door.
And I stole that from you. I always say that to my team. I occasionally I catch myself, but I don't feel like they work for me. We work together. We're a team. We're a high performing team. That's what I think about in my head. And I always say, like, if somebody's like, you're the boss, or you're my boss, or I actually don't like that. I kind of like, it doesn't sound right to me. Like, I'm the owner of the business. I'm the visionary. I'm whatever you want to call it, other than their boss. So for those guys, my team, I want, you guys are part of the team. You guys work with me. We all work together. We're all kind of driving the ship in one direction.
Yeah, because I always said, even though you're in charge of the whole company, you really got a lot of bosses, because all your clients are your boss and all your employees are, you got to work with all these people. So you're just got a lot of responsibility that you picked up, not really, boss.
Yep. And for us, it's a lot of our lenders. It's a lot of our partners. It's all the people we work with. It's our buyers. It's our sellers.
Yeah. It's all these.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So
they all want to see you succeed too, by the way. I mean, when you're working for an architect or you're working for one of your clients, they want to see you do well. They don't want you to fail. So they want you to do a good job, and they're willing to pay a good fee on it. So whatever is fair.
And I think it goes back to that, the underlying theme at Flip Hacking Live, I think that people took from it is it's about the people, right? It's about your staff. It's about all the people you work with. And I can hear it in your voice and what you talk about when you talk about the work that you guys do and the product that you put out. You're really proud of it. And you know that you're going to hold your staff accountable to be proud of it and put out a good product. And when you were talking about the pricing, you're bidding a job, keep holding them to that, and you're keeping it fixed, even though you got to the point where you're like, crap, we screwed this up. You might lose money.
We lost money on several jobs, but you hopefully you make it up on the other ones. So
and they come back. I mean, I told a story at Flip Hacking Live where I lost $70,000 on a house that we flipped. It was on HGTV. It seemed to be a gold mine, right? And I had a lender on that project made $40,000. We lost $70,000. My lender made $40,000. I'll tell you what I didn't do. I didn't call him up and say, hey, can I just give you your principal back and not pay your $40,000 in interest because we're losing money over here? And then we would have only lost $30,000. Well, that would have ruined my reputation. It would have ruined my relationship with that lender. It would have caused a lot of problems. And I'm not going to do that. We lost $70,000. It was a lesson learned. There are a lot of things that we did wrong that we should have done right. And we paid to not make that mistake again. And it was me making a mistake in my business and my team making mistakes and all the things that we did and lessons learned that we won't make again. Now, if I go make that mistake over and over and over again, I should not be a business owner. I will be out of business. I won't be a business owner. I'll be looking for a job from somebody else. So I think those core values, those things that what I hear a lot of in kind of your dad and in talking with growing up with you, I know it's about you are so much more patient than me. So I remember growing up, what you're talking about, your dad was very patient with you. He's very open. He was letting you make mistakes. I don't know if it's the time right now and the season we're in with, parents right now, like these helicopter parents and the kids and what's going on with where we have all these things.
So much more connected. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of that is causing a problem. So what I have to struggle with, what I have to work on is really like letting my kids go make mistakes, letting them fall down. I mean, Walter talked about like kids starting to walk for the first time and they fall down. You're not like running, like they have to fall down to get back up. And then they're riding their bikes, they're going to fall. So you like really realizing that I have to give my kids the scope to go out and hurt themselves and make mistakes. Like Lucas, our son, baby, just broke his leg. He's not even 2 years old. He's in a cast right now, all the way up to his diaper, from his toes to his diaper. And it's part of life. It's part of growing up. I don't want to see my kids cry and things like that. But I feel like, okay, well, maybe we shouldn't have him outside. Maybe he shouldn't be that close to James so James can push him over on the concrete. It's life. It's going to happen. It's like, I just got to figure out sometimes, take a deep breath, relax, and especially with Will, my 5-year-old, my oldest, I'm kind of like all up in his business all the time, just making sure he's not making mistakes and doing things, helping him with his homework. The other night, I'm like erasing it, like, whoa, no, we didn't make this look a little better. So I've really got to channel that, because I think you did a really good job of it. I think it sounds like your dad did a really good job of it, of not like letting us find our way and find our journey. And I think all of us, that's it, even relating that to business too. I do the same thing with my staff. I almost give my staff more rope than my family for some reason. And I think it's a little bit of that like perfectionist, you want to like high driving personality that I have, that I really have to figure out how to tone down a little bit. What do you think, like, what was it when I was growing up as a kid that allowed you to do that? Kind of like just say, hey, he's going to go out and he's going to make mistakes. Like I told a story about how I got in some trouble for some drinking underage when I was a kid and you had to come pick me up. So like, what was it? And then after that, I made that same mistake again. And you would still kind of give me the scope and let me go out and make those mistakes again.
Well, I don't know. Maybe because I made those same mistakes. So I just didn't get caught. So I don't know. I guess I had faith in you because I knew you, right? I know you. I knew what you're about, and I knew how you operate, and I had faith in you. So it's, I knew you were intelligent. I knew that you could think things through. We've been through years together, and so, and I always felt like treated the kids with, their independence, realizing that they're their own human beings, and you have to, respect that and let them become who they want to be or who they're destined to be. I don't even know which way it goes, but you ended up the way you are. It's not so much from me, because it's because of you. It's who you are. It's I was lucky enough to get you, so that's how that works. So that's.
Well, I appreciate that. I think it's very obvious when if you sat down, Grandpa, you and me together, mm-hmm. that people would know, not just by the way we look, but by the way we act, by the way we treat people, by the way that people feel when they're around us, that we had grown up together and had been an influence on each other. And my goal, like I said at Flip Packing Live, was that my kids can look at me and say the same thing that I said about you. And they really look at me like a role model and things like that. And sometimes I feel like I try too hard to get there. So I think a lot of us, and with the company too. So we're always trying, like we want the best for everybody that we come in contact with. Mm-hmm. And so I'll go back to the conversation that I had with Jocko, which I think is really powerful. It's that dichotomy. You could go too far in either direction. You can give those kids too much scope to go do whatever they want, or you can be way too strict and be right up on them all the time. And so it's somewhere in the middle for everything that we do.
Yeah, we got to straighten you out a few times. Yeah.
I remember. I thought you guys were really strict. I remember growing up, I thought it was super strict.
Really strict, but
I wasn't allowed to sleep over any kids' houses until I don't know how old I was. I was probably like 13 or 14. All my friends were going to that.
Mom knew the parents. Or
something. Yeah. There's some good rules out there. So and then I remember my brother getting more scope than me, but I think everybody thinks that way too. So, but I broke all the rules so that he could come back, and you guys were already beaten down a little bit, I think, after me.
We also tried to do that with our clients. I always told our engineers, I said, make sure you think that this project is like you own it. This is your house. This is your building. How are you going to want it? make it that way for this, with our client, think of it as your own. So.
Well, I think that's a powerful message for even our business too.
Thing, treat others the way you want to do.
Yep, that's it. I mean, that is it. If you treat other people the way that you want to be treated, that's what I remember that all the time going through my mind as I was growing up, and now even is just you saying that over and over and over again to me. So, okay, well, we told we don't have I could be on here for another hour, 2 hours. We can talk about the military. We can talk about a lot of your background in leadership and all of those things. But I think we got some really good stuff here about just kind of building a business, what it looks like, what kind of person it takes to do something like that, some of the lessons learned. And I mean, I'm taking some notes over here about, with my kids. And that's the cool part about doing this podcast is I get input from lots of different people to kind of shape the way that I do things, the way that I think I want to take a couple pieces from what everybody is teaching me and giving me on their journey and what they went through. So I think the biggest thing for me, like you said, at least for my kids, is just to let them be themselves. Like let them grow into the person that they're going to be with a little bit of my influence, but not control that or try to control it or try to force it. Oh, I know. You're right. It's human nature, but I love it. You're right. We can't control it. And sometimes we just have to let them go. And the same thing for our employees, our staff, give them the guidance, give them the process, the procedures, the systems, let them go do what they're going to do and really kind of build them up, reward them when they do a great job and give them some feedback and some constructive criticism when they need to make a change.
That's an idea. That's the thing. Yeah. Let them know when, show them, I think Jocko had that when he, doing that debrief at the Packing Live, he's talking about how one good officer went through and blamed everybody, and the other guy, he took responsibility for it, and then everybody else kind of stepped up and said, "Okay, no, you know what? You're right. We did this. We did that." And
yep. He's got a great story in his book where he was the guy who, somebody else made the mistake out on a mission. And he said, "No, it's not you. It's me." And everybody said, "No, it's me." And somebody else said, "No, it's me. It's me. It's me. It's me. It's me." And every single person is saying, "Hey, I'm taking ownership of this." And that's the way it happens in a good company with good people. And same thing, like Walter said, we're a training and development organization masquerading as a family. So a good family is the same thing. A family saying, "No, I screwed up. No, I screwed up. I should have done this." And that's exactly what you want. Those are the kind of people you want to be around and all of that stuff. And that's why we added that extreme ownership into our core values and mine, because that's it. Like, I'm not pointing my finger out. I'm pointing it in all the time. So what did I do wrong? How can I fix it? Yeah. I wish that I thought that way when I was like 15 or 16. You guys wouldn't have had so much problem with me around that time. So
you're fine.
Yeah, you got a bad memory.
You're normal.
Yeah, you're in your 60s. You don't remember that stuff anymore. It's like me now going, no, you guys are around my kids going, "Oh yeah, that's no problem. It's very easy." Oh, you just don't remember what it's like to have 3 kids under 5. So, all right. Well, hey, Dad, thank you so much for spending time with me today. And everybody, I think I had fun.
But I'm happy to.
Oh, this is great. I think look, there's somebody out here that needs to hear exactly this message right now. And that's it. If there's just one person that needs to hear this, then our time was well spent, and that's it. Like, it's going to move the needle for somebody. Somebody's in a position right now where they said, I got 9 direct reports, or I got 10, or I got 15, or I got a company of 200, or, I'm trying to structure something. So they're going to, believe me, this is some incredible content in here that people are going to really enjoy when they listen to it. And it might be just the right time for somebody to hear a message, whether it's in their personal life, whether it's in their friendship, like some of their friends, their spiritual life, their business life, their money, whatever it is. There's something here for everybody to take. So thanks for spending the time with me. I'm really excited we're going to see each other soon in Atlanta. We're going to go to a Georgia Tech football game because if you guys didn't see the presentation at Flip Hacking Live, we did live stream that first one. So hopefully you got to catch it. But I basically told the story about my dad and kind of me growing up and what it looked like and all of those things. So, we went to Georgia Tech together, both in the Navy. He got out of the Navy to have a better family life. I did the same thing after James. When I look back, it's just so obvious that my path was that way for a reason, and just the kind of influence that you had on me was so strong. And I just want to say thanks for, obviously being a great American, a hero, serving the country, a great father, a great grandfather. we had to schedule this in between his like multiple pickups for my brother's kids at daycare. So he's shuttling kids around all over Tampa. If you have some kids that need a ride in Tampa, just reach out to us. We can get you on the granddad bus. So I had a good time. Thank you so much. And for all of you guys listening, I'm really excited to continue to bring this leadership series, these people to come on and talk a little bit about their journey in leadership and running companies and building teams, because I think really that's what it's about. We talk a lot about real estate, and that's great, but it's really about building a team, building a business, letting something run. Whether you want to be involved or you don't want to be involved, at least you have the option. So thanks for hanging out with me on the podcast. If you guys like what you hear, please share with a friend, leave us a rating and review on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever, and share it. I'd love to get this kind of stuff in front of some more people and let us help them in their personal and professional lives. So, all right, I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, Dad.
Thanks for listening to the 7-Figure Flipping Podcast with Bill Allen. If you want to grow and scale your house flipping or wholesaling business, check out more insider tips and strategies from the nation's most successful real estate investors at 7figureflipping.com.